Why was Megadeth dropped out of the Aerosmith tour after only 3 concerts? In 1992, Megadeth released their most successful album to date, Countdown to Extinction.
Countdown to Extinction.
However, their planned tour of Japan in early 1993 was called off because Dave Mustaine checked into rehab. For its part, Aerosmith since the mid-1980s with the return of Joe Perry seemed to have its magic back and was preparing its best-selling album to date, Get a Grip. After finishing his treatment, Mustaine and company went to Europe to do a short tour with Metallica.
So are you going to get up with them tonight and play?
Excuse me?
Are you going to go on stage with Metallica tonight?
No.
And then they returned for what would be 6 weeks of concerts in North America, accompanied by Pantera and White Zombie. Pantera bassist Rex Brown says in his book Official Truth that at that point the bands couldn't be more different. He mentions, "The only emotion I can attach to the experience is that they were bland to hang out with. Our bands were polar opposites. We were in our heyday of getting fucking wasted every night, whereas they were on their whole sobriety kick, so the two don't exactly fit together." Megadeth left that tour with Pantera as soon as the Aerosmith camp called. The Steven Tyler's band came out to promote the album Get a Grip, which eventually sold 20 million copies and won 2 Grammys. Megadeth joined the tour in Mobile, Alabama for what was supposed to be 25 shows. However, since the second tour date, Steven Tyler was already in talks with Mustaine because Megadeth frontman was upset about not having time for a sound check as well as enough stage space. Megadeth bassist David Ellefson in his book, My Life with Deth, mentions that the meeting with Steven Tyler seemed positive. Ellefson mentions, "I remember him being very cool. He said, 'I hear there are some problems. Is there anything I can do?' I thought that was very considerate of him. I took the opportunity to bring up Steven's sobriety phone call to me years earlier, and I thanked him for that." In his book, Mustaine calls it the Great Sobriety Tour of 1993, because the only motivation to accept it was precisely that the members of Aerosmith had famously cleaned up their act after many years of leading depraved lives of rock and roll excess. The two bands were not a good match. The only person who served as a bridge between the two sides was a coach called Bob Timmons. He had worked before with Mustaine in his process of getting clean, and now he accompanied Aerosmith. But Mustaine was already upset, and things weren't going to get any better from that point on. The night after the reunion with Tyler, during Megadeth's performance, someone threw an Aerosmith t-shirt on stage. The frontman had no better idea than to pretend to wipe his nose before returning it to the public. The next day, in a radio interview, the DJ asked him, "Dave, we love Megadeth here in Texas. Why don't you guys play a little longer?" And Mustaine replied, "We don't have a long time to play because Aerosmith don't have a long time to live." In his book, Joe Perry mentions, "When Megadeth was opening for us, there was a nasty moment. Megadeth leader Dave Mustaine went on stage and badmouthed us as being over the hill. Not cool. We dropped them from the tour."
What happened with Megadeth and on the tour in America, because they were dropped, weren't they? Was he bad attitude?
Yeah, he got a bit out there, to say the least.
Probably every rumor you heard was true.
Okay.
And a lot worse, so.
In fact, Megadeth found out that they were not going to continue on the tour when they later arrived in the city of Lubbock in Texas for what was supposed to be the 4th date of the tour. David Ellefson says, "In a little Mexican restaurant, the waitress asked, 'What y'all doing in town?' And we told her that we were in Megadeth. She said, 'Megadeth? What are you doing here?' We heard Jackal was going to be at the show tonight. I heard it on the radio, and when we call our manager, he was already buying us plane tickets back home." Ellefson concludes about that period for Megadeth. Japan was cancelled. Metallica wanted us to stay on tour with them in Europe, but we came back. We had an opportunity with Pantera that we couldn't seize because we had agreed to this Aerosmith tour, and then we ended up getting thrown off the Aerosmith tour because of comments that Dave had made. For their part, Aerosmith continued on one of the most successful tours in their entire history, with which they made almost 300 concerts throughout North America, accompanied by bands such as Jackal, Four Non Blondes, Collective Soul, among others. We are leaving the Amazon links in case you want to see the sources and subscribe to the channel.